If you had a hospital that was constantly being sued, a school system that was constantly being sued and costing the taxpayer millions, people would have everybody fired. This should be a classic example of why police brutality is a problem for everybody.
And not only that, the camera. Thank God for the body cams. I've been saying this for so long that we need that objective third eye to be able to show what's really happening in these streets with police officers. But like Jason said, I mean, this is a huge problem because we had a camera actually have footage of this officer beating this man, and it doesn't deter that kind of behavior at all.
Sure, Michael, it wasn't even just the video of him beating him. The video also showed the cop planting the drugs in his car.
Right, it did, Roland. And my concern with this officer is I hope that prosecutors will go back into his past and look at other individuals that he has arrested to see if he's had similar behavior in the past. That's what bothers me. There may be individuals, we don't know how many numbers, that may still be in jail because of this officer, and he may have planted materials on them. So I'm really concerned about that.
But that's also an issue. We don't need to look into an officer's past after he's been convicted or after he's done something.
But there's no way to know with certainty until the person is convicted.
Well, things happen internally, and that's the problem. Things aren't being relayed to the public, or firings aren't happening, so these officers are now being hired in other agencies.
Well, precisely, and in fact, in this case here, not only was this officer fired, the police chief also was forced to resign as a result of what took place. Let's go to Chicago, folks, where a year ago, Chicago teenager Laquan McDonald, 16 years old, was stopped by police, and then he was shot 16 times. Folks in that city have been protesting, were stunned by this, and many of them called for the release of the dash cam video. With the Chicago Police Department and the city, they fought for a long time for this video not to be released. The community said enough is enough. The tape needs to come out. Yesterday, a judge in Chicago ordered the tape release. Initially, Chicago said they were going to appeal the case. Then all of a sudden, they changed their mind and they said they will comply, and the video will be released by November 25th.
Look, it seems to me that this is a good idea. Now, I'm always worried, and I'm not a lawyer. You'll be able to do that. I'm not a lawyer. But, you know, it seems to me that sometimes you have the situation where, you know, in order to appease the public, you do need to release this information. It is public. It is a public employee's behavior. But on the other hand, it seems to me like this would taint the jury pool. And I don't know if I would want a jury of people who have either already seen this tape or, heaven forbid, somebody in Chicago who hadn't seen the tape. So I always get concerned a little bit with some of these releases and how it may affect the ability to have a fair trial later on.
But here's the problem, though. The city of Chicago has fought this for a year.
Right.
No action has been taken against this police officer. Same thing, you look at the Tamir Rice case. And so by releasing the video, Yadid, I think what this does is it actually puts pressure on the Chicago prosecutor, the DA, to do something. In fact, in the statement from Mayor Rahm Emanuel, he initially tried to say that no, there are ongoing investigations, the tape should not be released, but he changed his tune yesterday, Ben saying it is clear. He says it is clear based upon the video and what this cop did was wrong, and he should be prosecuted. It's amazing how the tune of the mayor changed after the judge released the video.
We can't talk about trying to remedy the relationship between law enforcement and the community if we can't be transparent. The public has a right to know what is happening in their own city, and so they have a right to full disclosure of that information. Now, this judge made the right call. Unless the state or the prosecutors can show that this record is exempt from full disclosure by clear and convincing evidence, then the public has a right to know what is happening in the streets. And let's not forget Sam DuBose. That video came out before anything happened.
Right.
So there have been other cases where videos have been released to the public, and we've seen it. And Eric Garner, we saw that video, and that didn't taint the grand jury from not indicting.
Joining us right now via Skype from Chicago's Black Youth Project 100 National Director Charlene Carruthers, who was at the courthouse. And Charlene, earlier the city paid a $5 million settlement to the McDonald family. Look, you don't pay those kind of settlements unless you know there was some wrongdoing here. And what do you make of Chicago fighting very hard not to have this video released? And finally, a judge said enough is enough. It must come out November 25th.
So the Chicago Police Department is, in my opinion, one of the most corrupt police departments in the United States of America. What we know is that time after time, they failed to discipline officers who we know have taken the lives of Black people, like Detective Dante Servin, who killed Rekia Boyd. And so there's no level of surprise that the Chicago Police Department wanted to cover up the video. What I think is also important is that Laquan McDonald's family is distraught. They've been taken through the ringer by the Chicago Police Department and the violence against their son. And his mother has said over and over again that she doesn't want to see the video. And I'm actually more concerned about her than I am concerned about anybody else's reaction.
What about the fact that, first of all, it was a freelance journalist who put in a Freedom of Information request to have this released? That's what actually forced this court ruling. And what do you make of the change in tune of Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who was saying one thing before the judge's order, but then all of a sudden he basically implies that this officer clearly did something wrong?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the mayor's apparent change of mind is reflective of the work that many community organizations and leaders have been doing over the past year to call him, his administration, and also the Chicago Police Department to the carpet for their systemic abuse of power. And frankly, we're talking about a mayor who approved a budget where the Chicago Police Department takes up about 40% of our overall city budget. And so his gesture to say that seemingly is reflective of what we believe should be done, I'm not confident that that's reflective of a broader change.
All right, then, Charlene Carruthers, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Folks, let's go to Kentucky, where a Black Kentucky judge has taken a stand from the bench, and now he is being asked to step down, some say forced to step down. Several Jefferson Commonwealth prosecutors are demanding that Circuit Court Judge Olu Stevens be taken off all pending criminal cases. This comes after several controversial posts on the judge's personal Facebook page questioned prosecutor Tom Wine's alleged desire to have all-white juries to decide verdicts in cases with Black defendants.
And I think that it is a shame that Judge Stevens has had his ability to be able to judge effectively the way that he wants to judge impeded by the Supreme Court at this time.
The fact remains that it's not going anywhere. Somebody needs to bring attention to this issue. It happened to be a judge that is an African American, and because he's done that, for some reason now he's, biased, racist, and every other word that people have attached to him.
Kentucky Chief Justice John Minton has asked Judge Stevens to recuse himself. Let's go right to our panel. Jason Johnson, Yodit Tuwelde, Shermichael Singleton. Shermichael, here's a judge who is saying, wait a minute, I am seeing clear cases where prosecutors are purposely trying to have all-white juries. Right now, there's a case before the Supreme Court where this was the case in Louisiana, where they actually have the evidence on sheets of paper where prosecutors were putting a B by the name of by Black jurors to strike them from various panels. This is a judge who is saying, I see what's going on, but now all of a sudden they want him off the bench because he wants diversity among the jurors?
Well, right. I think we do need diversity amongst jurors, Roland. We do know that it's in human nature to have biases against different groups of people for various reasons. And a lot of those biases, from what we have seen, have led to African Americans being, unfortunately, given lengthier sentencing, sometimes even wrongfully charged for crimes that the evidence proved otherwise. So I do think that's very important. However, I'm a bit weary from the standpoint that I'm concerned that if we go into this, there may be other individuals who may be of a Muslim faith or who may be gay or bisexual who may say, well, there isn't a Muslim on the jury, so I don't think this is fair, or there isn't a gay person on the jury, so I don't think this is fair. So I agree with the judge. We do need diversity, but I think how we tackle this has to be very careful.
Sure, Michael, I'm sorry. First and foremost, we look at a lot of these cases. I mean, there's a historical fact
of
prosecutors
disagreeing.
trying. Yeah, but here's the deal, though. It's not like someone is sitting here saying being judged by a jury of your peers and you're striking somebody who's gay. First of all, you don't even know. Look, you know.
You don't even know who's
You don't
gay.
even know who's gay.
Roland, the point that I'm trying to make
But
is
no,
that...
I'm sorry, sure, Michael. You don't know who's gay, but you sure as hell know who's black.
Okay, Roland, I understand that, but what I'm saying is other individuals of whatever differences may say, I don't feel that this jury will do their best in judging me because they don't share some similarity of me, and we have to be careful with that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we can't pretend that there is an inherent, just like Roland, I think you mentioned Louisiana. It's actually a Georgia case.
Yeah.
That the Supreme Court is
the
revisiting.
Georgia case, but there's also the evidence from Louisiana, prosecutors there.
Oh, okay. So yes, so there were notes that were taken during the jury selection process, indicating that they were going to strike every single black on that jury. That is an inherent problem. My concern here is what is the issue with the prosecutor? As a former prosecutor, my job was to find justice, seek justice, and whether that was to my advantage or not didn't matter. So at the end of the day, if I see a judge using his discretion to allow someone, a defendant, to have a fair and impartial jury, a jury of his peers that make up his community, then who am I to stand in the way?
Right. Look, I got to say this, and again, pointing out the non-lawyer here. Number one, do your job, right? Like Belichick says, do your job. As a prosecutor, do your job. And this constant whining about, I don't like how the judge is trying to make the jury fair. Do your job, you won't have this problem. The second thing is this. We don't have to talk about human nature. We don't have to talk about history. We have empirical data. White people convict black folk all the time for things that they don't convict white people for. We have this case right now, the Holtzclaw case in Oklahoma City. Nobody thinks that guy is going down because he's got an all-white jury and he's accused of raping and abusing 13 African-American women. So this is a real issue. The judge has both empirical, moral, and legal grounds to do what he's doing, and these folks don't like the fact that a black judge is using the same discretion that white judges do.
Why is that? What if we had a jury?
And I think that's what jumps out. Go ahead.
What if we had a jury with Muslims,
right,
and there was a Muslim defendant? Most would say, almost most would say, that Muslim would probably get off because the jury is mostly Muslim. So I think for us to say, well, white people overwhelmingly...
Because it depends on what the crime is about.
No, sure, Michael, here's the problem here. You're throwing that up there. So what if it's an all-Catholic jury? Right. See, you're saying Muslim.
No, I'm just using that as an example.
But I'm showing you the absurdity of your example.
Well, it's not absurd. It's not. You don't agree, but it is not absurd, Roland. Okay. No, it is not. I don't agree with that.
Bottom line, the Constitution says that a trial has to be tried by a fair and impartial,
I agree with that.
Jury that is drawn from a panel that represents a fair cross-section.
And I agree with that. And I agree.
So when you have 40 out of 41 jury members who are all white, that is not a fair representation.
But how do we make it fair?
Well, that's what they're determining now.
That's the question. How do we make it fair? Do we leave it to the judge's discretion to do that?
And that's what the Supreme Court...
What the hell are you talking about, Sir Michael? That's the whole point. The reality is, here, Sir Michael,
okay, go ahead.
The whole point of it, this is a judge who is sitting there.
And I agree with the judge's decision,
Sir Michael, here's my whole point.
Okay,
go ahead. This is a judge who knows what prosecutors are doing.
Right.
This is a judge who is saying, wait a minute, I'm seeing something happen over and over and over again. And so here's what's interesting. When this judge actually does this, all of a sudden, the jig is up. He busted us. Now they're angry, as opposed to say, hey, you know what? Wait a minute. Let's take into account what he's actually saying. No, they want a prosecutor too often. They want to keep these high convictions, and they know exactly what they're getting by striking black folks and others from the jury by saying, give me all white juries. That's
well,
a reality.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with the judge, Roland. My only concern, and I just want to make this very clear, I don't disagree. I think the juries do need to be fair. I think the facts empirically do show that. However, my only concern is, if we do have a judge or we do have a defendant who may say this jury for whatever reason is not representative of me for some cultural reason or for some ethnic reason or for some religious reason,
but nobody was saying that.
But it could lead to that. But it could lead to that.
That's why we have Batson.
I don't have a problem with somebody saying that.
We don't.
You don't have a problem with that.
If I were a gay man accused of assault on another gay man, and I say, yo, I want some gay people on the jury because there may be some cultural communications and issues in this case that this straight jury wouldn't understand, you have every right to
So
make
then
that
every
complaint.
time, then, are we going to do that for every defendant?
it's a
No,
case-
you guys,
All
that
right,
wouldn't
well,
hold up in
here's-
court. No, we can't do
Not
that.
to use a straw man's
We need to
fallacy,
revisit
but
what
are
the
we-
what the Batson case is about, you guys. That's not what it's about. You cannot strike a juror based on race.
No, and I don't disagree with that. That's a fact. I
And
don't
if a
disagree with
defendant
that.
has a problem with the way a prosecutor has handled his
Right.
strikes, then he raises a challenge, and the judge at that
Right.
point rules on that.
Folks,
That's
hold
how
tight.
that goes.
Folks, hold tight 1 second. Come